citizens' comments changes, I believe, too, by Ms. Moore.
Good evening and welcome to the December 8th, 2020 Citizen Public Safety Review and Appeals Board meeting. This is a reminder for public comment. We're asking that you please call 269-350-4265. Again, for public comment, if you wish to leave a public comment for the board, please call 269-350-4265 and leave a voicemail message limited to 3 minutes. During the citizens comment portion of this meeting, your voicemail will be played back for the board. Thank you very much. The City of Kalamazoo's live streaming platforms do not currently offer live closed caption. However, please note that the public meetings are recorded and upon conclusion are made available with closed caption for the hearing impaired. I would also like to be excused this evening, approximately 6:25 due to a scheduling conflict, but I will leave you in the capable hands of Ms. Bonner and Ms. Vargas. Thank you, Chairman Payne.
Thank you. We'll have the roll call now, Ms. Vargas.
Sarah Buchanan.
Present, sorry.
Luis Garcia.
Here.
Curtis Gardner.
Here.
Daniel Hamilton.
Present.
Kim Hines Lepsey is excused. Oliver Howell.
Here.
Vernon Payne.
Here.
Jaquise Robertson is excused. And Larry Tolbert.
Present.
Thank you. And please note for our minutes that we do have a quorum present. We have had an opportunity to read and review the minutes from our 11/9/20 meeting. Are there any changes or additions to the minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the minutes. Is there
I put forward the motion to adopt the minutes as they are.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand or signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. The minutes are adopted. And now we will have introduction of, I believe, let's start with our board. And then we can go into introductions of our staff. And then I believe we have others present that Ms. Bonner will probably introduce to us at some point. Okay, I'm Vernon Payne. I chair the Citizens Public Safety Review and Appeal Board for the City of Kalamazoo. And I am entering my 4th year serving on the board. Mr. Tolbert? Can't hear you, Mr. Tolbert.
Happens, doesn't it?
It does.
Harry Tolbert, 2nd year on the board, retired member for 7 years of the building trades, heat and frost insulators, Local 47.
Mr. Howell?
Good evening. I'm Oliver Howell. I don't know what year I'm at on the board. I think we're at year 3. I'm an attorney here in town and happy to serve at the pleasure of Chairman Payne.
Thank you. Mr. Hamilton?
Greetings, Daniel Hamilton, member at large for the board, which I think at a year or a little bit past a year. So again, excited to be under Mr. Payne's leadership.
Thank you. Buchanan? Ms. Buchanan?
I'm having technical difficulties today. I'm sorry. I'm Sarah Buchanan. I'm a member at large. So this is the beginning of my 2nd term. So that would make it year 4, I believe.
Thank you. Mr. Gardner?
Hi, I'm Curtis Gardner. Been on the board for 4 years. Work at Pfizer and happy to be under the leadership of Mr. Payne.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia?
Good evening. My name is Luis Garcia. I believe this is my 3rd year on the board. I'm currently the president of local non-for-profits in Kalamazoo, formerly known as the Hispanic American Council. It's now currently called El Concilio. And I'm happy to be also serving under Chairman Payne's leadership.
Well, this is a wonderful board, and I'm very fortunate to serve in the capacity that I serve in. But one of the things that I make sure that I do with this board is that I leave my title at the door and my ego on the floor. And I think that speaks to how we function as a board. It's not about Vernon Payne. We have a very hard-working board. This is not one of those boards where you show up. These folks work very, very hard for the citizens of Kalamazoo. Ms. Moore, would you like to take it over at this point?
Thank you, Chairman Payne. And I think I've met everybody here. So I'm Patsy Moore. And I serve as the city manager's liaison to the board. So I am happy this evening. We have new personnel at the Department of Public Safety, and I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves to you and let them share with you what they'll be doing with the Department of Public Safety. I think we'll start with Ms. Turner. Before we get to Ms. Turner, the other staff that are here tonight, Ms. Bonner, if you would like to introduce yourself and go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Darla Bonner. I'm the Director for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Thanks.
And you don't see Ms. Vargas and Ms. Cockcroft. They are our support, but we could not do this without them. So at this point, we will have an introduction from Ms. Turner and then Mr. Green.
Good evening. My name is Latanya Turner, and I am the community collaborator with Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety, and I'm so glad to be a part. And I'll just be building on to the relationships that I've already started in my previous position with Consumers Energy, but now in the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety, and being able to serve you however I can. So thank you.
Welcome.
Assistant Chief.
Good evening, everyone. Ms. Moore, Ms. Bonner, and Chairman and the committee. My name is Victor Green. I'm the new Assistant Chief at Public Safety. Although I'm not new to public safety, I was a police officer and public safety officer back in '96 to 2005. I made it all the way to the rank of Inspector of Internal Affairs and Community Relations. I'm a Bronco, went undergrad and graduate work here, although I'm from Detroit, but Kalamazoo is my home. I was telling my wife I've spent all my adult life here. So I just got sworn in as the Assistant Chief of Public Safety Monday. Ms. Dola, I promise I will reach out to you tomorrow. I have a meeting scheduled with you. But our main responsibility, and Ms. Turner is also part of the team, we're threefold. One is Office of Professional Standards. I'm really excited to be working with the committee here. And it has grown and prospered when I was here back in '05. So I'm really excited about working with the committee. We're also responsible for community outreach, community relations. Ms. Turner is going to be the lead on that. And we have a brand new division within public safety that I am super excited about called Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. We're going to be working a lot with the city and other departments my goal is to be one of the most forward-thinking, re-engineering, rethinking of how do we do diversity, equity, and inclusion when it comes to Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety. So I am excited and honored to be back in Kalamazoo. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And we are excited about what's going on in public safety. And we look forward to sharing with you on a regular basis the good things that will be happening in the Department of Public Safety. So we welcome Assistant Chief Green and Ms. Turner to the Department of Public Safety, and also to this to support this board. Chairman Payne.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Bonner.
Ms. who?
Chief Coakley continues to impress with his vision of direct communication with the community and with transparency. And I think Mr. Green, or Assistant Chief Green, and Ms. Turner exemplify that. Two wonderful hires again. And I can say that with conviction because I have a relationship with Assistant Chief Green that goes back 20 years, having coffee every 2 weeks at Water Street. I know the character and integrity of the man, which speaks to the vision of our new chief. And we have long said that diversity, inclusion, and equity is a priority for the city. It's in everything that we say and espouse. Well, our new chief is putting that into action. And that encourages me and hopefully encourages you as well. With that said, we will have an update on the town hall meetings. Who's providing that update for us? Agenda item number 5. I hope that's not me.
No, I think that's Daniel. I think that was on you. You were in the listening sessions. He said town hall, the listening sessions.
Oh,
Is there a way
sorry.
we could have the agenda show? Is that possible?
I'm sorry.
Is there a way to have the agenda show for all of us?
Yes, I'm going to,
No, it was emailed to you, Sarah.
Would you?
I have it, but I don't like toggling back and forth between looking at it and, There we
are
go.
you able to see it now or no?
yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Great. So just really quick, me, Miss Bonner and Jaquise met last week around some restructuring of the listening sessions that we were going to conduct. I think we got some really strong, tangible next steps. It was pointed out that there was a survey that was being administered, that had been administered every 2 years by the National Citizen Survey. And Ms. Barner was happy to provide us with that survey to hopefully kind of lift up some themes and things that we kind of want to implement or stay away from in our survey in terms of like not wanting to repeat the wheel of what has been done. We also discussed briefly about just coming down with a more appropriate timeline. It was brought up, I think, in the last meeting that Chief Coakley was also going to be producing listening sessions, so to speak, and just not trying to kind of get everything kind of jumbled up in that way. So just kind of making sure that we're spacing that appropriately. I'm confident though that me and Jaquise have a meeting set up this week to kind of lift up some of the things that we want to begin seeing incorporated in our survey, and I'm confident that we will have hopefully a good schedule when we want to start rolling out the surveys and kind of begin planning the logistics and details around that. And I think that's all that we kind of discussed in that committee. Ms. Barnes, if I'm forgetting anything, please feel free to add.
And I met with the chief today, and we're still planning a town hall. The tentative date is January 11th, but the details are yet to be ironed out. Hopefully by the end of this week, we'll be able to share more via email, because we want to make sure that you know and and have it on your schedule when that event happens and how it will be handled. We want to make sure you stay in the loop on that. But that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Now, the format for that session will be provided in advance, I'm sure.
Yes.
And will the citizens who are invited to attend that session also have the format and the process in which that session will be conducted? That information will be distributed, I would assume.
Yes, and the goal at this point is to handle it almost in the same format at the commission meetings, where people are given a time slot to call in and leave their comments. That way we'll have a longer, instead of waiting till that night. But all of that will be shared before when it's finalized. Well, before it has to happen, because we want to make sure, one of the things that we want to make sure of is that we don't get the usual suspects, you know, that we reach out to get more people than we normally get, and people who have been impacted in different ways. And so the marketing of this is going to be crucial, which is why it's so good to have Ms. Latanya here, because she's going to be crucial in that. Welcome to our world, in making that happen. But that's one of the reasons that we're really being considerate, because we want to make sure that we have as broad a reach as possible, and as many people that are informed and able to share as possible.
And I asked the question because I'm sure that there will be some thought given to who the target audience is and how we go about contacting that target audience, all of whom may or may not have the technology that many enjoy. But there are community contacts out there that could perhaps be utilized in order to expand our reach when it comes to the session and target audience.
And that's why the focus that members Daniel and Jaquez have on the survey is so important, to capture those people who don't have technology that we might not normally capture. So that's why we're trying to think both ways.
Wonderful.
Chairman Payne, may I ask your indulgence and move the subcommittee reports up just so that we can have adequate time for our guests?
Yes.
If there are subcommittee reports, in case you have questions for me.
Yes. Are you going to go through the tracker? Is that the?
I was not. I was hoping to short circuit tonight, but I certainly can.
Well, if we have subcommittee reports to share, then let's go that route. We don't have to go through the tracker.
I know that the website committee, I think, subcommittee did meet since our last meeting. Is there an update that you would like to share with the group at this time, Sarah?
Yeah, Curtis and I met with Patricia. So I think a couple items that were included in this packet were some logos that we're looking at that we've kind of talked about in the past, so that we have some visual representation of the board. And then that would go along with the website modifications. So I don't know if we can take a look at those and make a decision today on which we like best. And then as far as the actual website itself, before we start asking city staff to put in work to that website, I think that we really need to like detail some specifics that we're wanting to see on the website, and do a little research to make sure that those things aren't probably repetitive on either the website that currently exists for our board and or that might exist on the public safety website. So we're going to have a follow-up meeting here. So if anybody has, I guess, suggestions or specific asks, we would love to hear them.
Let me just add this, Ms. Buchanan. You guys have done a tremendous job in putting this document process together. And a lot of thought went into the creation of these choices on the logo. And I don't know if all the board members have had an opportunity to take a look at them or not, but your examples that you used and drew from are great. And the thought that went into the positioning of the letters and language is fantastic. It's hard for me to make a choice in terms of emphasizing the city or emphasizing the board, those types of things on the logos. but very well done. You and Mr. Gardner certainly put some work into this.
Oh, we can't take credit for that. I think that was Patsy and her team that took care of that. So they did a great job. I had the same problem. I was like leaning one way and then I opened the second document. I was like, oh, I kind of like these, the simpler like black and white emblems too. So
We
do you have a
can
recommendation,
work
Ms. Moore,
with
when we go about that?
Patricia and perhaps send out some kind of poll,
Yes.
get an indication of where folks are leaning. I'm not able to pull those up right now, but that might be a way to move forward, just to get a sense, and then we can narrow it down perhaps and settle on something at a future meeting, if that's acceptable.
I think that is a way forward for us. If we could get a poll and then we simply indicate our top 1, 2, and 3 choices, perhaps, and that would give us a sense of direction for going forward. Any objections? So then Ms. Vargas will provide us with that poll and
Does everyone have the logo? Logos?
It was included in our packet. You have to go in. I printed them out, but they're in your packet.
Yeah, I got them. I just wonder if everybody's got them.
And we can always resend them if need be. So I don't have any additional updates that are not on the tracker at this time, unless you have specific questions for me. I would, this is our last meeting for this year. This has certainly been a different kind of year, but I think it's been a fruitful and productive year. And again, on behalf of the city manager and myself, thank you for your continued commitment and all of the work and energy and passion that you put into this work. It's been a pleasure to serve with you. And if I don't see you for the rest of the year, I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we'll be ready to start running next year. Back to you, Chairman Payne.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Moore. You have a pleasant holiday as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 6, Ms. Bonner.
Thank you, Chairman Payne. And it is just such an honor tonight to introduce our chosen consultants to facilitate our review of the KDPS use of force in response to our events over the summer. It was a special honor to be able to make that selection with Chairman Payne and Member Howell. And I didn't know if you all want to say anything before we give it over to Michael Janarco and his team as part of the selection crew. It was quite a interesting, a very positive experience I had reviewing those proposals and working with you, Mr. Payne and Mr. Howell. Would you like to have any words about your thoughts on our guests before I turn it over to them and why we thought they were the best?
Mr. Howell, do you have any comments?
No, not really. I mean, I just, we had a pretty rigorous process. And I think it really said a lot that when we scheduled an interview with this firm, that all team members that are going to be working on this project showed up to the interview and answered all the questions, the numerous questions we had. And it's just been a tremendously positive experience selecting that firm. And I appreciate your input, Ms. Bonner and Chairman Payne as well.
Thank you. This firm brought a lot of understanding of the issues to the table. And firm indicated in the response materials in the RFP that they were familiar with the breadth and the scope and the complexity of the issues that we face in policing, not only in our community, but across the country. And they understand systemic change. They understand that you can have policies and procedures, but you must also have culture to implement those policies and procedures. They get that. And we had many discussions about that with the committee, with Ms. Bonner and Ms. Attorney Howe. And we examined the firm deeply and gave a lot of thought to the decision, and came to the unanimous decision and conclusion that this was the absolute best firm to come into our community and to look at the issues that they've been asked to review. And so we have every confidence that you will live up to everything that I've said about you. With that said, I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Bonner.
And thank you for that. And just to put a little context on the work that was done, there were 4 applicants. We scored applications and came down to two possibilities, and then had a series of interviews and reference checks. So it was not, it took a considerable amount of our time. And as volunteers, I want to thank you, Mr. Payne and Mr. Howell, because it did take us considerable amount of time. And we have great expectations and are honored to have the ORI group and led by Michael Ganarco with us today. So I'll give it to you, Mr. Ganarco. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Director Bonner. Good to see you again, Chair Payne and Board Member Howell. That was, you've really set a high bar for us, and now we've got to produce. So the challenge has been laid. But we look forward to that challenge. I'm one of the principals and the founder of OIR Group. We've been in business providing oversight and independent reviews for 20 years now. For those of you who were just meeting, other board members. I also have on the call 2 of the core team with me, and I'd like them to join this discussion by at least saying hi and introducing themselves. Teresa and Jody, do you want to jump on?
Sure. Yeah, good evening to everybody. So humbling to hear the extent to which, you've looked into us and into our work. And so we are very honored to be here and to be doing this work for your community as well as for some communities across the nation. Really crucial time, I think. And so we are just honored and also humbled to be able to provide insight and experience to your community as we move forward with this project. So thanks for having us.
Jody, you want to jump in?
Sure, Mike. Good evening, board and members. Thank you for choosing us to be a part of this journey with you. I know as volunteers, it takes a lot of commitment, a lot of work to try to get things like this done, but it's very important work to be done, not just in Kalamazoo, but as Chairman Payne said, nationally. So I know we're looking forward to working with you and hopefully providing some expertise and some different ways and recommendations for you to move your public safety department forward.
And Jody, while we have you on camera, can you just say a little bit about yourself and your background? For those of you, I know Chair Payne and Director Bonner and Mr. Howell are going to be tired of this, but there are some new folks on here.
So obviously, my name is Jody Steiger. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California here, and I've been with LAPD for almost 28 years now. I've worked a number of assignments, but my primary, some of my primary assignments has been with training and reviewing of uses of force with our department. I also am a senior lead instructor for one of our regional police academies. So we work with a number of other agencies in Southern California, as well as I'm currently working for our Inspector General's office for the Los Angeles Police Department. So.
And for those of you who don't know, the IG's office is the oversight office, similar to you all, except that they get paid for their work, unlike you all. I guess it's a larger agency with 15,000 officers to oversee. So, Jody, thanks, and Teresa, let me get you back on just so you can say a few words about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my career in oversight about 14 years ago, working at the office that Jody is at now. So I was with the Inspector General for LAPD. I did the majority of the work in use of force evaluations, ended my tenure there with a special assignment over to the mayor's office, where I was working a lot with the community and being the community liaison between the mayor and the various public safety entities in the city of LA. Was very grateful to land with OIR Group several years ago. And my two kind of areas that I like the most are our community listening sessions, getting input from folks who are very rarely brought into the process. As I heard mentioned, there's a lot of usual suspects that start to show up to city meetings. And I think that their voices are extremely important. And I also think that there is the opportunity to reach well beyond the usual suspects. And so I'm looking forward to hearing who those folks might be and reaching out to them, getting their perspectives and their points of view. And the other area that I'm very interested in always with our work is the statistical and data analysis. I'm a huge fan of the fact-based kind of opportunity that we get with looking at hard numbers. And so to the extent that we're able to work with some of those statistics that came out of the events in Kalamazoo to really just give some fact versus all the story that tends to surround these kinds of events, I'm very excited to do so. And that has been a big part of my work, both with OIR Group and with the Inspector General's office, as well as some consulting that I've done in other areas. So again, just grateful to be here and really looking forward to getting in the weeds with both the community and with all your data sets.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Jody. Just a bit about me. The older I get, the longer it takes. So I'm going to do the 100,000 foot level of my background. But I was, when I was a middle school teacher, and then I went to law school, went to the Civil Rights Division in Washington, D.C., and worked as a federal prosecutor prosecuting police misconduct, hate crimes, and human slavery cases, and did that for about 15 years. Then got into the world of oversight, and the rest is history. I've been working in oversight for 20 years now. One thing that interestingly enough, is that there, after the George Floyd murder, there and after the appropriate outcry by various communities and those taking advantage of the First Amendment rights that we have in this country, the police response to those activities, the crowd control response, has certainly become an issue that has been part of the national conversation. And as a result of that, and as a result of the work that we have done, and Teresa goes all the way back to a May Day, a day of civil unrest that was very controversial here in Los Angeles. It sort of predated all this a decade or so ago. But most recently, we've been brought on for Kalamazoo is one of 4 assignments that we're looking at. We're looking at the police response in Iowa City, Iowa. We're looking at the police response in Santa Rosa, California, Santa Monica, California. And so as a result of those assignments, I think that we will be able to see the challenges that each community has faced and each public safety department has faced in those various jurisdictions. And through that blend of experience, come up with better practices on a going forward basis. And so that is what we're looking for. I will wrap up. We'll certainly be available to answer any questions that any of the board members have, but I want to wrap up with two specific points. One is that we do have, I think, a certain advantage being introduced to your city in that we don't have any long-term relationships with your city. We don't know the players. And as a result, we're going to come in with an unvarnished, unbiased perspective as an outsider, which I think is advantageous in the fact that we don't have any prior suppositions about your public safety department, your city's residents, and your communities. That's an advantage, but at the same time, it's also a disadvantage because we don't know your city. We don't know some of the challenges that your communities have faced over the years. We don't know the history of your public safety department, and the past is a prologue to the future. We will learn that, and we are already learning that as a result of the good work Director Bonner has already done by putting us into at least initial contact with some of your city leadership. But we need to, in our view, dig deeper. As Teresa was indicating, and as your chair has indicated, we want to get beyond, we want to talk to the usual suspects, but get beyond them as well. You should know that just an hour ago, I received an outreach from one of your community members who was very active in the protests and wants us to talk with him about his experiences. And we want to do more of that. But we don't want to rely on the goodwill and initiative of your communities in order to do that. So two asks of you as sort of our liaison in a special way to the assignment, which is one, to the degree that you all would be willing to share your individual insights on any of these questions, whether that is the broader world of Kalamazoo and your life experiences as community members, or your specific perspective and insight and views of what this summer has been in individual conversations with each of you would be extremely helpful to us if you are willing to do that. Secondly, for those who you all go out and have coffee on Water Street and do all kinds of things and engage with your community in ways that, particularly during this world of the pandemic, we're not going to be able to do as well. And so if you have other sources of information that you think, gee, if I had that assignment, who would I want to be talking to in the city of Kalamazoo? Please let us know who those individuals are or who those organizations are so that we can work to gain insights and perspectives from them. I expect, because public safety is always very well regimented and documents a lot of what they do, that we'll have a wealth of information from the members of public safety, and we look forward to talking with you, Assistant Chief Green, and we look forward to doing that. But we want to go beyond, just the view and perspective and insight of public safety, and we are the big ask for this evening is to see if there are ways that you could assist us with that assignment. So that's how I'll leave it, and I really appreciate and look forward to working with each of you on this important assignment for your city.
Thank each of you for that presentation. It's much appreciated, and for shedding light on some of the rationale behind your selection. I would ask that each board member, if you want to have input into this process, work through Ms. Bonner and not independently reach out to OIR. And I say that because we want to make sure that everything we do as a board is transparent and it can be viewed by the public. And we do not want the public to think that as board members, we're leaning in one direction or another direction with our input. If it goes through Ms. Bonner, then I think that would be the appropriate way for us to have some input into the process with your guidance, Ms. Bonner, if that's okay with you.
That's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine. I also want to just say, and I should have said this at the beginning, the continued relationship that the ORI group will have with CSPRAP. They will be making monthly reports, regular reports. We're still working on processes and timing. Regular reports to us and the city leadership, to you all. I say us because I'm with y'all, so I'm one of you, to us and the leadership, because that's how we started. That's why it was so important that you all are a part of this. And one of the things for tonight, and what Mike I think is asking for, is your input. Excuse me, this is the time for us to ask questions. You know, we're going to be asked what this process is. I've had people wondering why now, what are they going to do? Are they going to rubber stamp? And so we're going to have to be the voice that we are making every effort that we can to make sure that this process is, like Mr. Payne said, not only is transparent, but not only transparent, that it will answer questions that have not been answered, that we are unable to answer. You know, you don't police yourself. You need an external view, an external perspective to give our story about what happened. We're all going to learn something. I think I hold on to what you said, Mike, about we're going to learn something. Some of it we will like, some of it we don't. But that will also be the community, but we're going to learn it together. And the goal is that we can honestly learn from this summer, our response this summer, and become better. I really appreciate the chief's perspective in that he is excited about this process. He's also met with this team and he wants it to happen because we are going to learn so much. We're going to learn. So this is our time. You know, Mr. Payne and Mr. Oliver and I, we've had an opportunity to grill them. If you have any questions, I will say that I have some context too. I met with the Public Defender's Office this week, and there was an observer, what do they call them? Not a silent observer, but that was arrested. You will be put in contact with them. So it is really important that we get the right people to this organization. So I don't know if anybody has a question. We're not going to, you know, belabor the issue, but we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to participate in this part of the process. Thank you, Mr. Payne.
Yes. Any questions of the OIR group board member by any of our board members? Mr. Tolbert.
Yes, Chair Payne, you were saying that you want everything to go through Ms. Bonner. So anyone who comes forward, we should give those names to Ms. Bonner and then they give those names to Mr. Ganarco?
No,
what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that providing names and contact information, I think, is perfectly appropriate. You don't have to go through Ms. Bonner for that. But if you're going to make comments, opinions on what it is that should be happening with this investigation, then I think that should be channeled through Ms. Bonner. And I may have heard Michael wrong, but I thought he was asking for us to have conversations with OIR direct. And that made me a little uncomfortable because I think any comment you make, you ought to envision it being on the headline in the Kalamazoo Gazette. And so that would be my advice. And one way to mitigate against that, perhaps, is for us just to send, myself included, my comments to Ms. Bonner. But if you have names of people that OIR should contact, then I think that's perfectly fine, in my opinion.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. One other thing, is there a timeline on this investigation?
Yes, Board Member Tolbert. The goal, the objective is that we will have a report for the city within 120 days of receipt of the underlying information, which will at least initially largely come from the Department of Public Safety.
To further clarify my perspective, I have some very definite views on how our police department interacted with the protesters that were involved in September and the protests that went on earlier with the Proud Boys, rather. And so I have some definite opinions about that, but I'm not sharing those opinions with OIR at this point in time, because I don't want to be looked at as being prejudicial one way or the other in trying to put my thumb on the scale. I don't want to do that, although I do have some definite opinions about that. One of the things that resonated, I think, with our team, with Attorney Howell and Ms. Bonner, was the fact that OIR, mainly through Teresa, is using a social science approach. And in that approach, you listen to opinions, but you really want to get to a conversation around the data that supports the opinion. And so now I might have an opinion about the Proud Boy interaction. We all do. But then I think Teresa will come in and she will apply some data to that so that I don't have to have an opinion about that. The data will support my thoughts or it won't support my thoughts. And that's the beauty of this organization. Now, there were only 4 organizations that sent in RFPs, but we must have looked at 15 or 20 different groups as we went through the process. I mean, we've had conversations about all of those groups and compared OIR on a national level with other groups other than the 4 that sent in the RFPs. And we're totally comfortable with the work that is going to be done and the quality of the report that we're going to receive. Any other comments or questions for?
Just one, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Tolbert.
Just one more item, just to make sure that the board and the community are on the same page, that this investigation is specifically for Mr. Payne, so that we don't get sidetracked on bringing in a lot of other items, but this is specifically for, would you explain that?
I'll let Ms. Bonner answer that question in terms of the 2 incidents that we're looking at.
So the request was that that we have a review of the police department's use of force activities in response to the riots and the response to the George Floyd murder that happened at the end of May and June, and to the August event of the Proud Boys. And in doing that, they will review footage, body cam, whatever data, whatever we have, along with interviews. And then the unique thing about this investigation is to compare those 2 events through an equity lens, because the cry of, we said we would respond to the community. The cry of the community is that they were treated differently from the way it looked. And again, you go back to what the data said, and the way it looked, the treatment between the 2 groups is that one was, they were not treated equitably. And so this group they would investigate those events separately and then review them, compare them. And I will let you describe how you would do that. But that was what the proposal requested. They would look at, our response to I almost said public participation plan. I got too many departments in my head. But the right to protest, the freedom to protest. They will look at our policies around that, the police policies around use of force, and compare all of that to what happened. That's what that's how we phrased it in the request for proposals. Does that make sense, Teresa, Mike, and Jody?
It makes sense to us, and to Chair Payne's point. I understand what you're saying, Chair Payne, about how you are a body, and if one individual speaks sort of outside the line of the body, it may confuse your community about whether that's the personal opinion as opposed to the body's opinion, and you all have other responsibilities in that regard. That being said, and I also hear your point, and we definitely agree that evidence-based findings are very important to be part of our assessment. That being said, public perception about what transpired is also another reality. And so we do need to hear from people, maybe not you all as much, but we do need to hear from people who have been impacted by either directly or indirectly by the goings on of this past summer. And so we can hear from individuals about their perceptions. And maybe those perceptions will not be borne out by the evidence. Maybe they will be partially borne out by the evidence or totally borne out by the evidence. But that's why it has to, in order for this to be a full review, we need to take into consideration the spectrum of perceptions that people have about this, and then pull that apart and see to what degree they are backed up by what, by evidence. So that's sort of, it ends up becoming a complicated approach, but I think it's the only approach that will be meaningful, when all is said and done.
So, can we act? I want to make sure, Mr. Talbot, I answered your question.
Did a great job answering my question. And I think the community understands what's going on and what we're doing. Thank you.
Hey, can I say one more thing that I'm concerned about? I understand that you all want to go through me. I'm good with that, but I'm really trying to keep us out of the conversation between this organization and the community, because I don't want people to think we're filtering who we want to talk to them or not. And I also want to make sure that the community knows, and you might want to talk about this, that when they come to you, their information is anonymous. It's not, you will not be going to the media. It's different with us as city staff and the volunteers of the city. We're in a different spot because of the Freedom of Information Act. We're kind of in a different spot. But when it comes to our community members that want to be a part of this, because I don't want anybody to be afraid to participate, thinking that they're going to be treated like we could be treated as city staff and volunteers. So can you talk to the community about the anonymity? I think I said
yes. Anonymity is absolutely correct, Dorla. I mean, we realize how difficult it is for some, particularly some who live in Kalamazoo, to come forward. And for that reason, the report will not be a report that said, and then we talked to Mr. Jones and Ms. Smith, and this is what they had to say to us. It will be, our report will be informed by what they had to say to us, for sure. But for those who do end up in interviews with us, they will not be put front and center in our report, if that makes sense. And by the way, I'm all out of rubber stamps, Director Bonners. Don't have any more.
Chairman Payne, I have two thoughts, if I may, when it's appropriate.
Sure. Yes, it's right now. Please.
Okay. Yeah, just two brief thoughts. Well, one is that, I think because we are a very diverse board, and we're all involved in different areas of the community with our own connections, even on social media. When we're at a point where we're ready to blast this out, that this is the contact information if you have an opinion about those two events, maybe we can circulate that as a board so that we can post it on our own Facebook or Twitter, or text it to people, because I think that we're all in a position where we know someone that played a role in those events, that does have an opinion, that does want to be heard. And I agree with Ms. Bonner that we certainly want to avoid the perception that the city would be filtering what is heard. And the scientific approach that's being taken by your institution is great, and we trust you to use that data as necessary. And the other thing that came to mind is that all of us as members of this board are playing many roles, right? We're members of this board, but we're also members of the community. So if someone like Chairman Payne has a strong opinion, I wouldn't want you to hold back from adding that to the set of data that's analyzed. As a citizen of our community, as an upstanding citizen of our community. So I would encourage members of our board, even if you know, we are members of this board, to also share your opinion with OAR Group. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Attorney Howe. Maybe in the alternative to address Ms. Bonner's comments and Member Tolbert's comments, if we are not to go through Ms. Bonner, if I have names of individuals in the community that I think you should talk with, what's the process for me to deliver those names? And with the understanding that those folks are going to be anonymous, but I have divulged their names to you. And so in that sense, I am not holding tight those names. So what's the process, Ms. Bonner?
Yeah, just to keep the city out of it. I mean, you all are appointees of the city, obviously, but nonetheless, you do you're community representatives at the same time. So, Chair Payne, you can take those names and communicate them directly to me, and that's one way of avoiding the perception that somehow Ms. Bonner and her unit are filtering or managing the process. Because at the end of the day, what we don't want to have is the report comes out and then you have community activists or representatives say, why didn't I have a chance to participate and why didn't they talk to me? And we don't want to, we want everyone to have that opportunity.
So am I to understand that OIR then would provide each of us, our board, with email contact information so that we can follow what Ms. Bonner is suggesting and what you're suggesting?
Absolutely. And Ms. Bonner, can you do that at some point? Just make sure that they have at least my contact information.
I'm sorry, I said OAR, I meant OIR.
I know you did.
It's a great band, but you know.
And we're also going to have, we have our 311 system where you can call in to get any information. It's still connected to the city, but it's not connected to me. And because some people are still going to call us to ask how to do this. So those folks will also be given the script or read something like that. If you have a concern or would like to share your experience with part of the riots, the KDPS use of force study, please email Mike Ganargo at that. And that's all we're going to say. And we would just have to, like you're saying, Mr. Howell, we would just have to keep putting it out in every spot possible so people have direct access. Because I know I just don't want us to start off with folks thinking we're filtering because we don't want to be honest. This has got to be right. This is all I keep saying. It's got to be right. If we're going to do better, we're going to gain the trust of the community. This has to be right. We're not ignorant that we're in a bad spot with our community. You would have to be blind, it's just unfeeling and unaware. Excuse me for saying blind, but you would just have to be unfeeling and unaware of the tenor in our community to know that we're not hurting behind these events, and that hurt was just a magnification of what was already happening. So we have to respond in order for this community to go on, and none of us are going anywhere. The government's not going anywhere, and the residents are not going on. So we're all going to be here together. We might as well figure out how to be here together. And go the same way together. So we want to make sure this is done right. I'll stop because then I'll get on my soapbox and have my own personal private preaching moment, and I won't do that.
Any other comments on the subject? I don't believe we need to take a vote on this. But what I'm hearing is correct. You will be acting in your capacity as a private citizen when you make those recommendations to OIR. They will not be representative of the board, certainly, and what the board thinks you ought to be recommending, but it's your own personal thoughts about some of the folks that OIR ought to be talking to. And that information will remain confidential between you and OIR. Am I looking at this correctly? Okay, wonderful. Now, there is a sticking point here in terms of community perception. and social science. In 2013, Lambert Company came in and did a traffic stop study here in our community in Kalamazoo. And they found that the police in Kalamazoo were racial profiling. The data showed that. And they were profiling Black citizens almost exclusively, with some brown citizens involved. And it was throughout the whole community. Now, that was 2013. Prior to 2013, the perception in the community was that Black folk were being treated differently than white folk in the community. Now, the kicker is the police department was operating according to their policies and procedures. So they were operating within a culture that said, this is what we do. And I see my colleagues smiling because that's where culture eats policy for breakfast. And so although our community may have a perception that they were treated differently during these two incidents, you got to, when you go back and look at the policies and then the application of those policies, that's where the rubber hits the road in terms of perception. And so, and OIR understands that as good as any or better than most. And our two subject matter experts, Teresa and Jody, deal with it on a regular basis. So they understand that. But I share that with you because sometimes you can have that perception and it's within the policies and operational procedures of those various departments. And that's why I think OIR is magnificently suited to take a look at these issues for us. They have done this before.
I think Chairman Payne, I think you hit the nail on the head with that, as well as not only sometimes just policy, but sometimes even state law.
Exactly, exactly. And you come out of that situation with the understanding that it's systemic. And you have to have a systemic approach. You have to dismantle the system that allows that to happen. And that's where my good friend Victor and my good friend Latanya come in. Anyway, our department is going to have that responsibility. I don't want to ramble on here, so we're at a point where we're ready for, if there's no other discussion on this topic.
My last comment.
Yes, Mr. Cooper.
Yeah, last comment. Since they're on the clock now, could we make sure that those phone numbers are given out to us immediately?
Thank you, Mr. Tolbert.
Yes, you will have.
I do have one. Sorry, I do have just one question. And asking if the OIR group could speak a little bit too about their past data collecting efforts and how they kind of format and lay out that data, specifically in terms of if knowing whether or not we're going to see this data kind of disaggregated by demographics, race, gender, and the importance of making sure we lift up representation in that data of, like Michael was saying in the beginning, of the communities most impacted by these policies and practice, because so yeah, just a little bit of background around that.
Sure. The data component is important. So, for example, to the degree that there were arrests or interference with protest activities, to the degree that there is demographic data that exists, that would be part of any analysis, because there is certainly a perception already that the way in which the police responded to the protected activity was dependent in part on the color of the individual who was making the protest, right? And so that's something that either needs to be established or not established. So that would end that sort of disaggregation of data based on race and other characteristics are going to be key to our evaluation. Absolutely.
thank you. Does that answer your question, Mr. Hamilton?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Any board member comments at this time on any subject? Okay. Hearing none. Ms. Vargas, are we in a position to hear or citizen comments?
Yes, Chair Payne. I believe our IT, Andy Miller, will be letting us know if there are any voicemail messages for us to listen to during the citizen comment time.
That is now.
Right.
There are currently no comments at this time.
Thank you. And just a note to thank the board for the discussion with OIR, and thank OIR and Michael and his team for the opportunity to engage in this conversation. I'm sure that we will have more conversation going forward. And I think it's important that we do, because one of the visions that we have with our new chief is that we operate transparently and that we communicate with our citizenry. And we want to do that in a forthright manner. And so I think that that is something that we all should keep in mind, myself included. I will, at this time, if there are no other comments, entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting. Our next meeting is January 12th, 2021. I won't see you again for the holidays, or we won't see each other for the holidays or the new year. So I hope that you have a safe and enjoyable holiday and new year. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion, and I want everyone to stay safe and keep healthy.
A second, please.
I second it.
It's been moved in second that we adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you, Michael, Teresa.
Thank you. Stay safe. And we've had quite a year, 2020. Let's look forward to 2021.
Yes, definitely.
Help is on the way. OIR.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
And everyone.
Be safe.
Good night.